At CES 2020, Elgato Gaming, the company best known for their popular and accessible video capture cards, and more recently the Stream Deck, teased a new kind of product, something they've never done before. They called it Project Wave. It was mysterious. They tried to avoid making it obvious. They wanted everyone to guess about what it was. They didn't want to come out and say it. It was clearly audio related, but what could it be? A mixer? A microphone? A Go XLR competitor? A red herring? It's a microphone. It's clearly a microphone. CES was mostly a blur, so I originally remembered the product trailer being much shorter and less obvious of what the product was, but nope, they still show the entire thing plain as day. All of the articles questioning whatever could it be feel even more silly now. But the cool thing is, it's not just a microphone. It does have a lot more to it, functionality and tricks up its sleeve. Despite going against a few things I typically say are no-nos for streaming microphones in 2020, it's actually impressed me. What also impresses me is Nerd or Die, today's video sponsor. Their high-quality, diverse, customizable stream layouts and assets help you build a professional-looking stream in minutes, and their one-click setup saves you even more time. Despite having custom-built assets from graphic designers, I still slip elements from their library into my streams all the time. I like them that much. I can also finally announce that you can use my coupon code EPOSVOX to save 15% on your orders. Head over to eposvox.gg/nerdordie to learn more. But what Nerd or Die won't tell you, though, is what Project Wave actually is. Well, congrats Captain Cool 31, you were correct. Project Wave is kind of like a USB microphone and a Go XLR all in one. Well, before I go much further, it's worth clarifying that Project Wave is not just one product, but two. Possibly more later, but that's unclear. And if you count accessories, then it's closer to like 5 products, but let's not worry about those for now. There are 2 Project Wave microphones, the Wave 1 and the Wave 3. They're basically the same thing though, and I'm not sure the Wave 1 should even exist, but we'll cover that later. The main concept is actually a pairing of a wonderfully crafted microphone with a Lewitt-made capsule and some pretty nice software to make your life easier as a streamer. The Wave Link software runs on your computer and works very much like the Go XLR software. This means you get a full multi-virtual audio cable setup registered within Windows or Mac OS. So yes, it is like a USB microphone and a virtual mixer all in one. But there's no physical inputs on this thing. It doesn't qualify as an actual mixer. But the software can still replace one if you are a single PC streamer. We'll touch on this in a moment. The Wave microphones as a physical product do not feel great. Mostly made of plastic, it's lightweight, almost cheap feeling, though they've made major improvements from the earlier test products from CES. But it's not a toy, and outside of dropping it down a flight of concrete stairs, I don't anticipate any build quality issues over time. The mic shape and design resembles classic vocal mics like you'd see on the desk of late-night talk show hosts, which is pretty neat. I wasn't kidding about it being lightweight though. The mic itself is actually under the minimum weight requirement for a mic arm like the Rode PSA-1, so you'll want the pop filter and shock mount to help with that. Cheaper mic arms can rejoice though. They'll hold up fine unlike typically heavy, expensive microphones. My biggest complaint here, such an obvious one. These mics only come in black. While the Wave is supposed to be more like a sound wave, a play on sound wave. Wave. Project Wave. Elgato's color is blue. Where's the ocean blue colorway version? Come on, team. Depending on which mic you have, the interface might look a tad different. Oh yeah, and Wave 3, that's a little weird to say out loud since it's at a local news station. It's a tad taller. The Wave 1 microphone just has a single knob on the front to adjust monitoring volume to the headphone jack and can be pressed in to mute the microphone. Wave 3, on the other hand, has many more lights. That's where the 3 and 1 numbers come in. The Wave 1 only controls one level adjustment, monitoring, whereas Wave 3 controls 3 different levels, monitoring to headphones, gain for the microphone, and a balance of the microphone between real-time monitoring of the microphone and the sound being output to it via USB. Pressing the knob on this mic will switch between the modes, with muting being delegated to a capacitive button on the top of the mic. The mic capsule itself in both microphones is exactly the same, so the overall sound quality achieved from both will be virtually identical. The only real difference here is that the Wave 3 can operate up to 96 kHz, while Wave 1 is limited to 48 kHz. Both mics operate at 24-bit, 16-bit is an option. There's a $30 price tag difference between these two devices. While I personally feel they should have just gone all in on the one microphone, and having one without all the fancy features feels a tad non-committal, I also feel there's plenty of people who just want the mic itself and the cool audio routing software without actually using anything on the mic itself. So saving $30 while doing so isn't a bad deal. Thankfully, their software makes it easy to not use the onboard tools. As I mentioned at the start, Project Wave goes against 2 rules I usually have for my audio recommendations for content creation. It's both a USB microphone and a condenser microphone. I've long spoken against using condenser mics for desktop streaming setups due to the issue of background noise and controller and keyboard and mouse noise. Without a heavily sound-treated room, more so than you think is necessary, once you start to EQ and add compression and things like that, it's gonna start sounding bad. Dynamic mics are almost always a superior way to go when it comes to noise rejection. That's why virtually all broadcast mics are dynamic mics. That being said, condenser mics do have a place, and plenty of streamers use them with finely tuned noise filtration without issue. And RTX Voice makes that even easier, assuming you're not on the new Windows 2004 May update. RTX. It's in your voice. I also frequently suggest viewers don't invest in USB microphones because they always come with compromises and don't allow for much of an upgrade path and limit what additional audio gear you can add to your chain. You can't plug a USB microphone into analog audio hardware. I mean, you can with the headphone out, the real-time monitoring, but that's just terrible practice. That's not a way to go. But there's also the massive market of people who want something more plug and play and easy to use while still having some flexibility. I think Project Wave provides that. In fact, that ties in why I consider the use of a condenser microphone capsule okay in this context too. Overall, condenser mics, at least good ones, don't really need an upgrade path like dynamics. There can be some pretty big jumps in what you can do going from cheaper dynamic mics to the big boys, but good condenser mics can kind of be used indefinitely without a compelling reason to upgrade. Just evolve your processing skills over time. So for the kind of audience that wants this mic, mostly a single PC streaming setup with all the audio routing features, this is one of those set and forget kind of setups where you never have to worry about upgrading, as long as you don't want too complex mixing or hardware processing or anything like that. For Project Wave, the condenser mic capsule, which again was developed by Lewitt, a legendary audio company, is still pretty nice. It's not going to reject much background noise at all, but the sound you get from it is lovely. In fact, this entire video, voiceover and all, has been recorded using the Wave 1 and Wave 3 microphones, albeit with some post-processing applied. Here's how it sounds unprocessed compared to a couple competitors using my usual Lord of the Rings quote. 3 rings for the Elven Kings under the sky, 7 for the Dwarf Lords in their halls of stone, 9 for the mortal men doomed to die, 1 for the Dark Lord on his dark throne, in the land of Mordor where the shadows lie. 1 ring to rule them all, 1 ring to find them, 1 ring to bring them all, and in the darkness bind them, in the land of Mordor, where the shadows lie. Overall, I like the sound that you can get out of this microphone. By default, it sounds mostly natural, though feeling a little muddy on my voice and still carrying some of that compressed sound that every USB mic seems to have, but can be EQ'd to clean up and really fill out and sound great. Granted, it doesn't really compete with some of the big boy microphones from Lewitt, but for a fraction of the cost, I really wouldn't expect it to. The default muddiness, I feel, doesn't allow for the natural warmth of my voice that I aim to recreate with something that you hear IRL, but not so often over microphones, like the 440 Pure mic picks up. But it's super clear in the high range and not boomy at all, which is great. This is how a microphone should sound. You can get a nice clear presence to cut across your background music bed, gameplay sound, and so on. There's a couple of settings you should be aware of with this microphone in the Wavelink software though. By default, at least for my installation, there are 2 checkboxes enabled for the microphone, labeled Enhanced Low Cut Filter and Clip Guard. I'm not sure what is enhanced about the low cut filter, but since the mic is already not very boomy and I don't have any low frequency hum in my room, I leave that unchecked. With it enabled, I feel like I lose even more warmth and start to have a cold or tight feeling to my voice. This is a microphone test with the low cut disabled. This is a microphone test with the low cut enabled. This is a microphone test with the low cut disabled. This is a microphone test with the low cut enabled. ClipGuard is this mic's secret weapon. I absolutely love this. ClipGuard is a technology that Elgato have implemented within the analog to digital converter of the mic, similar to how some of the more expensive audio recorders operate with a safety track. 2 different audio channels are run from the microphone, with the second one running 20 dB lower than the first. The microphone then dynamically switches between these 2 tracks to circumvent any peaking or clipping. This means you can basically get as loud as you want without distorting. The main mic track has 95 decibels of dynamic range, but you get the extra 20 dB of range via ClipGuard. This is a killer feature for this microphone and makes the lives of basically all streamers instantly better. I'm so tired of hearing distorted, clippy, and peaky audio on streams. It's so exhausting on the ears. This isn't the first time we've seen this. As I've mentioned, audio recorders can do this quite well, and I discovered during my HyperX Quadcast review that it seems to have some sort of limiter running on it to prevent clipping, and the Go XLR has one too that can't be disabled. But this might be the best execution of the idea for streaming specific gear, and it's optional. Color me impressed. Here's what it looks like in waveforms compared to it being disabled. Now, you still should manage your mic gain appropriate to your distance from the mic, as cranking up the gain to max and relying on ClipGuard to avoid clipping just means you'll have a massive noise floor compared to what you actually could have. Also, this will have no impact on the tone of your voice, just levels. Here's a quick white noise test to see how the noise rejection feels. Rotating around the microphone, around the microphone, around the microphone, under the microphone, under the microphone, on the other side of the microphone. Here's a quick typing test with Cherry MX Blue keyboard switches with O-rings while behind this microphone in a normal game streaming setup. That's a lot of typing though. Here's a couple mouse clicks. Here's a test from far away so we can compare for proximity effect. And here's a test right up on it to compare for proximity effect. Both microphones claim on the box to have a built-in pop filter, yet they sell a pop filter as an added accessory. What gives? Well, let's get some plosive testing. This is with the pop filter on. Let's take it off. I do appreciate that Elgato committed to the primary cardioid pickup pattern for this mic. Many USB mics coming out of gaming companies today take the Blue Yeti clone approach of having like 5 different pickup patterns and dual capsules in it, which no one is using for this kind of product. And I just feel it requires more cost-saving corners to be cut. Plus the extra controls to do all of that switching, no such nonsense here. So yeah, it's a pretty solid mic. Am I still waiting for a streamer-focused USB microphone that's dynamic? Yes. Though I know one is in the works, but I can't say more than that. But do I think a condenser mic is the right choice or a solid choice for this product? Also yes. The main superpower of this mic that makes it stand out from all the other just USB mics out there is the Wavelink software it ships with. Now this software doesn't run on the mic or anything. It is just software with the mic basically acting as a hardware license key to activate and use it, but it's very powerful and intuitive for what it is. When you plug in the mic and install the software, it registers about 7 virtual audio devices to utilize for routing your sources through. On Mac, this actually allows you to capture desktop audio sound to OBS and other streaming programs, which isn't possible by default, even with Apple's own QuickTime screen recorder, and some alternatives to set that up could cost you $100. Using the software and operating system routing settings, you can completely separate and balance sound from your games, music, browsers, voice chat, and so on. You have complete control over your audio mix. Plus, you don't even need to use the virtual audio devices they provide. You can remove them from the queue and add other devices registered to your computer, including other microphones and output devices. This lets it play nicely with the Go XLR as well. Though somehow the software overwrote the icon for the Go XLR's broadcast stream mix with the Wavelink icon, even though they don't use the same device names at all, it's weird. The software UI is mostly intuitive, but let's run through it quickly. The main window presents you with your audio channels. This is the main fader section of the mixer, if this was physical. You can add and remove audio devices to the list, change the levels, and tweak mic settings. You'll notice there's actually 2 faders per microphone. The awesome thing about Wavelink is they've actually implemented a main mix and a sub-mix, or 2 different mixes that you can manage. One is your monitoring mix, how loudly you hear things in your headphones or speakers, and the other is your stream mix, how loudly your stream will hear everything. This is super powerful, as it allows you to set up audio devices that only you hear in your headphones, or only your stream hears and not you. So if you want to play music that you don't have a license to, but you don't want it to go into your stream so you don't get DMCA'd, you can just mute that device from going to your stream. Or if you play sound effects to your stream but you don't want it interfering with your ability to hear your game, you can just mute them to your headphones. Plus, you can manage the audio balance of each. I cannot understate how powerful and important this is. This is also super useful for managing your voice chat, such as from Discord, and controlling if your stream hears it or not, balancing against your voice, etc. Join us on Discord at eposvox.gg/discord. You can change the name of each track to better identify what they're for. There's a chain link icon above the level faders, which allow you to always keep the headphone and stream levels in sync. When you change one, it changes both. You will want this for some devices, but not all. You can click the headphone or stream icons to mute those specific devices to those specific outputs. Below this inputs section is the outputs section, where you adjust the master volume levels for your monitor mix and your stream mix, respectively. You have audio meters to view how close you get to clipping your full mix, just like your individual devices. There's a drop-down for monitor mix, which actually allows you to choose which output audio device on your system that your monitor mix actually goes out to. So if you don't want to use the headphone output on the mic itself, if you're using a wireless headset or a dedicated DAC amp combo, you can output everything to that with minimal added latency. Do note that the actual real-time zero latency monitoring of the microphone can only be done on the mic's physical headphone output, but that's fine. In my testing, there is a fair bit of latency on the mic going to another output, so using it to another pair of headphones might result in the kind of stadium sounding effect where you get delayed feedback. It won't bother some people, but will be a problem for others. Weirdly enough, it's more latency than the Go XLR originally had that it complained about in its review, and it's like it's just enough to me not quite as disruptive to speech as the original Go XLR latency was. It's weird. There's also an ear icon next to the outputs. You can use this to quickly check your stream levels in real time. It'll route the stream mixes balancing out to your monitoring device instead of your monitor mix, so if you use different levels for each, you can make sure your stream is sounding how you like. This is neat. Elgato will also be adding a third output device to the Wavelink software, which will basically act as a voice chat specific mic, like the chat mic device on the Go XLR. This allows you to mute and deafen Discord interaction completely separate from the rest of your stream. Useful for responding to new subs and follows during your stream, or other stream-specific interactions that might disrupt your game buddies in the middle of a match. Good stuff. I do not have an ETA on this release, however. At the top right corner of the software, the gear icon just opens basic preferences to check for software updates and change if the software opens at startup. The speaker icon opens the Windows sound settings so that you can change which programs route to which audio device. This is how you assign your game to the game output, music app to the music device, browser to browser, and so on. If you haven't seen this feature in Windows 10, it's pretty great. Once you have your mix all finished and balanced, then you simply add the Wavelink stream device to your streaming app as the main microphone device, much like the broadcast stream mix device from the Go XLR, and you're good to go. It's that simple. Unfortunately, this highlights a hope that I had for the Wavelink software that never came to be. There's no support within Wavelink for post-processing on your microphone like the Go XLR has, albeit the Go XLR is doing so on dedicated DSP hardware, but there's also no support for adding VST filters to Wavelink either. So if you want to do any EQ, compression, or just noise removal on your voice, you cannot have it run through the stream mix. You need to mute it to the stream mix and then add the mic in Wave device to your streaming app and apply VSTs there. Or run it through RTX Voice first, then add the RTX Voice device. Thankfully, this workaround is supported, but I have to admit I was disappointed not to see direct support for this in the software. What's also interesting to note is that the monitor mix and stream mix both show up as separate audio devices within Windows, so you could route them to different recording tracks for different purposes. There is no ASIO or ASIO driver included here in case you specifically wanted that for your DAW software or something like that. As far as comparing the Wavelink to the Go XLR software, when you compare how they just handle routing alone, they mostly do the exact same thing but with different approaches. Wavelink uses a traditional mixer layout with just faders for the two outputs for routing. The Go XLR, however, has 4 separate submixes plus the sampler I/O to route, so they went with a routing table instead. This makes sense given the additional complexity of the I/O, but since Wave has less complex I/O routing, the approach that they took makes sense and is probably more intuitive for new users to grasp. Well, it wouldn't be an Elgato product without Stream Deck integration, right? Wavelink installs a Stream Deck plugin, which basically gives you full control over the Wavelink software. You can toggle monitoring between the stream and monitor feeds, you can mute specific channels to either the stream or monitor mix, you can mute your microphone to the stream or monitor mix, or you can mute your individual output mixes entirely. You can set volume levels for input and output channels, as well as adjust individual mic settings such as gain, volume, low cut, and clip guard. Good stuff. I have 2 main complaints about the software. Overall, I'm very impressed with it. It doesn't like the mic being plugged and unplugged while open, and it has some hangups sometimes, but they spent basically all of 2020 so far working and polishing on the software, which is a nice step forward, given that I usually complain about their unreliable software with most of my other Elgato reviews. Thankfully, one of my complaints is fairly benign. I can't resize the window to view all 8 channels at once. For a virtual mixer, it's imperative that I have access to all of it at a glance, not scroll to reach it, and there's literally no reason not to let me do that. My second complaint can be a real frustration for many people though. If you unplug the microphone, the audio devices disappear from Windows. The mic acts as a hardware key to let the software work, and it is what actually installs the virtual audio devices as one big USB device. So I get that it's not going to let you do anything without the mic being plugged in, but to completely remove the devices from Windows means that your entire audio configuration could be reset if the mic gets unplugged or disabled for any reason. I'm the kind of guy that wishes Windows would let you lock audio devices so it never changes what's active on its own, so that part is kind of annoying. Along with that, if you close the app itself, the audio devices remain, but the mix stops functioning. You'll stop hearing anything. This affects your ability to hear anything whether you use the headphone output on the mic or another audio monitoring device. It won't affect real-time audio monitoring of the mic directly to the headphone output, however. That is pretty much always running. Also, there seems to be some conflict with the Go XLR driver. Not in a bad way, but just a minor and convenient one. I mentioned that the Go XLR's broadcast stream mix got a Wavelink icon already. Well, for monitoring in the Wavelink, the system output device for the Go XLR is missing. Weird. Even weirder, the actual headphone device for the Wave microphone is labeled as a Go XLR device, when it's not. This headphones for TC Helicon Go XLR device is not a Go XLR device, but is the headphone output of the Wave mic. Super weird. I do wish they would develop an SDK or whatever for users to work with, as being able to pair it with a MIDI controller instead of just the Stream Deck to control levels on as basically a full mixer presentation for cheap would be sick. This mic is incredibly easy to use. We just finished covering the software, but the physical device is just as easy as well. Especially if you have the Wave 1, where you only have a single dial and a button to worry about. USB and headphones go in the back, and you're good to go. On Wave 3, lights indicate everything you need to know. Click the knob to change modes, turn it to change levels or balance, and tap the capacitive spot on top to mute. But this is what I don't like about mini microphones. Handling the mic to make these changes is a very clunky way to go. It's one of the big appeals of a mixer layout like a Go XLR or an actual mixer. The shock mount would help with some of the handling noise, but it would still be there. And at least on the Wave 1, using that dial to mute brings flashbacks of terrible Blue Yeti experiences. Ka-chunk, ka-chunk. Thankfully, the Wave 3 upgrades you to a quieter button, but you have to be pretty careful and precise to use it smoothly anyway, since it is literally on top of the capsule. Although they did develop a Stream Deck plugin, so you can use that as your control surface instead. One of the major theories after CES and their original teaser was that it was a mic with a separate control surface, due to the outline teased at the end. This would have actually been a really cool concept and potentially allowed them to release different kinds of microphones to pair with it. But perhaps a silly venture, since it'd either have to be a direct Go XLR clone or competitor, or be a closed-in ecosystem of products with no expansion or upgrade paths outside of the Wave line. The knobs on the side of the mic allow you to tighten and adjust the angle of the microphone, though whether it's on a mic arm or stand, you can only control the angle a tiny amount before the USB-C cable hits the frame. Perhaps a super low profile, thin USB-C connector at a right angle or something could solve this, but To attach your Wave to a mic arm or stand, unscrew it from the base and screw in the bigger thread connector included in the box, then attach to your mic arm or stand. On top of the handling concerns with the on-microphone interface, having the headphone cable connected to your mic can be an issue as well. On the desk stand, it's probably fine, but on an arm or higher stand, you just have your headphone cable dangling, and that's not a way to go. So for these reasons, I'd imagine most people aren't going to actually use these features and rely on software and monitoring to a different output device instead, which totally contradicts my statement that Wave 1 shouldn't exist and maybe changes it to, well, maybe most people have no real reason to invest in Wave 3 for the extra $30. Huh. Well, it's your call. You might want to save that $30 as well, as they're going to get you with the accessories. They sell a shock mount and a pop filter separately for $39.99 and $29.99 respectively. The pop filter isn't necessary, but will definitely help make your viewers' ears have an easier time and help teach you proper practice with microphones. The shock mount isn't entirely necessary at all unless you have a really noisy desk or bang it a lot, but it makes mounting and angling the mic on an arm a lot easier and more how you want it to be. Both of these look quite nice as well. They also sell an extension rod kit to raise up the mic. This should have been included in the box. It's too short. The stand is too short. I have to wonder if this was thought up after packaging and everything was done. Just throw it in. So what about dual microphone or dual PC setups? Obviously these are completely different situations, but both are tricky. Let's start with dual microphones. What if you have multiple hosts, guests, or generally want more than one Wave microphone on a single system? I'm gonna say for now, just don't. Officially, 2 microphones aren't supported in the Wavelink software, but it was suggested to me that you could still use 2 OK in OBS or something like that. However, at least the first time I tried this, things went real bad real quickly. Windows and Wavelink both got real confused, and once it finally unfroze, everything broke. Even after multiple Wavelink restarts, I was unable to get system sound out of my monitoring device, and I was no longer reading any microphone audio from either mic in the software. Plugging in the second mic registers an entire set of new audio devices to go with it, which is kinda useless, and since you can't use any of them really. I was able to get both mics working in OBS though eventually, so that's a plus. Now here's a little Elgato Wave ASMR. Because why not? Because you're worth it. I don't know what I'm doing. I just know this is a thing that people do somewhere, somehow, some why. And you can do it with 2 Elgato Wavelink microphones. Just not using the Wavelink software. But that's okay, right? I'll try pushing to 4 soon. I was hoping since the second mic just registers as a normal device in Windows that I'd be able to sneak and just add it into Wavelink as an extra channel, but Wavelink seems to use some sort of weird strict whitelist of devices, so it doesn't show up and many of my input devices are also missing. What about dual PC streaming setups then? How would you utilize this? Well, there's 2 approaches you could use, depending on how you want to set it up. Either the Wave mic and Wavelink software exist on your gaming PC, or your streaming PC. If you wish to apply post-processing to the mic as a separate device in your streaming app, then you really have no choice but to run it on your stream PC, so we'll start there. This all works as we've already covered in the software section, but in Wavelink, you'll want to use one of the spare channels to add in your gaming PC's audio, either via a capture card HDMI input or a direct line out to line in 3.5mm cable run from PC to PC. Then you can monitor and balance it for your stream and be good to go. If you're running your mic on your gaming PC, you'll need a workaround. They could make this easier by allowing the drop-down next to Stream Mix to let us select a secondary output device that the mix is sent to, i.e. your HDMI out to your capture card. You could also pair it with Elgato's older sound capture app to maybe get what you want. Alternatively, however, you can set up your balance and monitoring as normal, but then go to your sound control panel and find the Stream Mix device under the Recording tab. Right-click it, go to Properties. Go to the Listen tab and enable listening and choose your HDMI output to your capture card as the output device. Then your final mix is sent along with your gaming PC video output to your capture card, ready to be streamed. But it's probably best to run this on the streaming PC. The mystery of Project Wave may have subsided, but my curiosity as to how users will take it and utilize it still remains. As a project, it was successful, at least in my eyes, but I'm left wondering what other exciting things Elgato has planned for this bizarre year. Well, it has been a ride. I've been playing with these microphones basically since CES, and it's great to finally talk about them and have them on camera, as keeping something hidden while my entire desk and workflow is regularly on display is quite tough. I did have a slip-up or two. Whoopsie! I'm impressed with the Wave mics. I cringe every time I see a new gaming peripheral company release a microphone, and it's usually either a meh Blue Yeti clone or something totally bizarre like the deodorant stick mic from Asus. Even better, those mics usually cost more than the Wave mics do. I hadn't thought about it much, but while the usual naysayers who expect anything streaming related to be magically dirt cheap or free, $130 is actually incredibly competitive, not just for a USB mic, but for the full package that you're getting. I already thought the Go XLR Mini was a phenomenal value for the interface mixer tech you get for that price, but for those looking for a more plug-and-play solution or an all-in-one solution, Wave has got it beat, especially, again, for the price. But it's not for everyone. Ultimately, I think buyers need to take the time to make the right decision as to whether this is the right product for them or not. Streamers just getting into the game with no audio experience, or those with slightly more simple needs and who are just tired of messy cable setups, this is a perfect fit. Having spent years running multiple sound cards and hum destroyers and cables everywhere to achieve what the Wavelink software does and just completely replicates in software, I wish this or the Go XLR were around 5 years ago. Would have made my life so much easier. The simplicity here really makes it stand out as an option. There's been quite a few cases where I've had to take a meeting or a business call on a computer where I didn't have my usual audio set up, and I just grab a Wave 3 and hook it up. It allowed me to set up on my all-in-one audio mixing, balance and listening was quick, and it was the convenient option that I wanted. If you're looking to do podcasting, voiceover work, game streaming, YouTube content creation, or just some slightly advanced presentations, webinars, or meetings, Elgato's Wave mics are a great option. Also invest in acoustic treatment for your environment, and watch my video on getting optimal audio quality with basic physics first as well. If you are doing voiceover work in particular, you may want to invest in the Wave 3 specifically for the 96 kHz audio support. For streaming, this is completely irrelevant. However, if you wish to loop in any sort of analog audio hardware or processing, this is not the right choice, and you definitely need to invest in an XLR microphone and some sort of interface. I have full microphone reviews playlist linked in the video description if you want my recommendations there. If you compare these with the current, at least gaming and streaming focused USB microphone market, it really seems like this might be the best option here. Wave is very price competitive against the Yetis and Quadcasts on the scene, and brings Wavelink functionality that it would be silly to ignore. Even if you don't think there's anything too special about the sound of the mic, you want to choose the one that brings you all this extra functionality and convenience, right? The clip guard, the virtual cables, it's a solid package. Ultimately, Wave serves a couple different audiences here. It's a great plug-and-play microphone for content creation, but it's also a virtual mixer for audio routing and balancing for streaming. As separate parts, they're not that special. Elgato releasing this mic on its own as a USB mic with no software really wouldn't have stood out that much. It would have been boring. Elgato releasing the Wavelink software as a virtual cables option would have been neat, but not anywhere near as polished as a dedicated paid app would probably need to be. If you're looking for the best vocal microphone you can get for your money and don't care about all that other stuff, I suggest investing elsewhere. If you're looking for great virtual cable software and all that alone with no microphone, look at Voicemeeter. But if the pairing of these two concepts together are what you've been waiting for, this is it, Chief. I am surprised as to how polished and fleshed out the software has gotten for Elgato, though. I imagine selling the microphones with it helped to cover the development costs. I do hope this is Elgato turning over a new leaf, however, as I've long complained about their software and wish they would invest more in it. Affiliate product links to the Wave 1 and Wave 3 will be in the description down below. I can't believe I'm recommending a USB condenser mic in 2020, but they done did good. This is how you enter a new product market and do it right. No more Yeti clones, please. I'm EposVoxer, stream professor with even crazier quarantine hair. I really hope this era is done. I want my curls back. I want the helmet hair gone. I just want my hair to look like it used to. If you enjoyed this journey of a video, hit the like button and subscribe for more videos like this. Consider subscribing on Floatplane for early access and behind the scenes content. Come join us on Discord to chat about the products and get tech help. If you're looking for something else to watch, click to watch the video on the cheapest capture card I've ever seen. See ya.